Part man, part machine, all hero.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Combat Zone.
My name is Justin.rycaj, and today I'm going to tell you all about the action-packed Cyber Streets. So let's jump in. Cyber Streets is a love letter to all things 80s, cyberpunk, retrofuturism, and anime. I was responsible for all aspects tied to the creative vision of this game. I filled many roles over the development cycle, including creative direction, combat design, UX design, systems design, and level design. Over a period of 8 weeks, I worked together with a technical designer on the project to develop an exciting third-person action experience in the Unreal Engine. The goal of the project was to develop an off-the-hook, fast-paced action game where the player gets to experience what it's like to be an extremely nimble cyberpunk ninja. The pillars of the combat experience were lightning-fast melee combo attacks that overwhelm enemies, super acrobatic and agile movements to engage or evade enemies, fighting enemies one-on-one or against a whole group of them, and frantic subversive combat encounters. 1 versus 1 in an open space, 1 versus many in an open space, 1 versus 1 in an enclosed space, and 1 versus many in an enclosed space. Cyber Streets features many action-packed moments. The elevator guard. After defeating enough regular enemies to level up at least once, the game's critical path leads them into a corridor that introduces them to their first heavy. Here, a scripted event is triggered that locks the player into a narrow corridor with the heavy enemy type. Their imposing stature and slow movement speed is intended to throw the players for a loop. The final fight. That happens once the player manages to cross the sky bridge to the second train platform. It is at this point where the player's true mastery will be tested. The player must defeat 3 waves of 2 heavy enemies. What makes this fight so challenging is not only fighting groups of 2 heavy enemies in a confined space at the same time, but also the lack of health packs and the frequency at which the enemies arrive. To bring this to life, I created a stamina management melee combat system, tactical reactive dodge system, multiple weapons that consume different amounts of stamina and deal different amounts of damage, a simple RPG level system that increases the player's health cap or stamina cap, and environments and enemy encounters that were designed to create frantic, subversive combat sequences. The most important thing to implement into the game was the player's stamina system, as it was a core pillar of the combat system. Every action the player takes reduces their stamina, forcing them to carefully evaluate their next move. After the weapon and stamina systems were implemented into the game, I carefully selected the most exciting attack animations, evasion animations, and combat sounds that would work for all the weapon types and make the player feel like a real cyber warrior. The final design resulted in the player having a 3-attack, regular damage melee combo, a single heavy attack that knocks enemies down, 3 directional rolls, and a back handspring for evasion. Significant time was taken to make sure the player felt totally in control through responsive input using both the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One controller, ensuring all button mapping was intuitive and comfortable. To provide players with a more streamlined combat experience, a single target lock-on system was built by me and my technical designer. Initially, the lock-on system worked well against single targets. However, as the enemy numbers increased, it became increasingly difficult to manage which target you wanted to lock onto at any given moment. To solve this, the technical designer built a lock-on system to my specifications, a multi-channel sphere trace that will always lock onto the closest enemy within the acceptable radius. The new lock-on also allowed players to cycle through locked-on targets. It would also auto-lock off if an enemy was killed, and would automatically lock onto the next nearest enemy within the acceptable radius upon killing an enemy. This new lock-on was designed with the intention of making players feel like a cybernetically enhanced fighter with lightning-fast reflexes, and balanced gameplay around the design choice of not having a block feature. 2 of the enemy classes designed and built for Cyber Streets were as follows. The regular enemy. It's a basic trash mob type. Their behavior tree was created with several functions in mind: patrol, spot the player, approach, attack, dodge, take damage, and die. The regular enemies have a single attack that uses an underhand slash animation. This animation telegraphs with a backswing lasting 10.13 frames, giving the player ample time to evade the attack. These enemies were made this way intentionally in order to ease the players into combat against an enemy which isn't overwhelmingly difficult in a one-on-one scenario, but can still overwhelm the player in greater numbers. Another enemy integrated into Cyber Streets was the Heavy, a more challenging foe. Although the Heavy has similar behaviors to the regular enemy type, they are significantly larger, with a much slower movement speed. In order to balance them against the player's high agility, they were given a rapid 2-hit combo with a startup time of 9.44 frames, followed by a second evasion window of 12 frames. That's devastating if the player gets hit enough times. I encourage all of you to download Cyber Streets and try it for yourself. Thanks for watching. Please feel free to contact me at my email address below, and have an action-packed day.